Hello everybody, and welcome to a little review on an interchangeable needle set that I've had for a while now, and I've been using for probably 2 months, something like that, a good few weeks anyway. So I thought it'd be a good opportunity just to let you all know what I think about this set and just to give you some details of it. So the set I'm talking about is the Hiya interchangeable bamboo set. I purchased the small set, and that basically means that you've got the smaller sizes. I'll tell you the sizes you get in a second. And also I purchased the 5-inch tips. They do also come with a 4-inch tip. I always think that's really small. I think it would be useful for things like hat projects, you know, where you work in that small circumference in the round. And I think some people do prefer a shorter tip. But I actually like the 5-inch. That's the kind of standard, I think, really these days. So I purchased this set from Woolstack in the UK. I've just checked, they do still have them, but the price is higher than when I purchased them. I can't remember the exact price, but I remember at the time thinking it was on some sort of offer. And it was somewhere in the £40, 40-ish, mid-40s, I think, which was an amazing bargain, I think. I mean, now on the Woolstack website today as we speak, it was just over £61, and on Love Knitting it was £68. So I think that's quite a big difference, really. And I'm sure if you shop around you'll find them in some other places as well, but that just gives you an idea on the price. So what do you get for your, at the moment, £61? It comes in a really pretty case. It's a Hiya, I believe, is a Chinese company. So you get this really pretty Chinesey oriental looking fabric. Comes in different colours depending on which set you order. I've seen it in red and I've seen it in blue. I've got this lovely purple. I really like this fabric. I've heard some people say that they don't like it. I mean, it's a personal choice, obviously, but I think it's relevant for where the product originates from, and it feels quite authentic. I really like that. It's very well made. So you open it up, it has this little sort of bobbly thing. So you just open it up, and then you've got a flap that covers your needle tips. So in the small set, they range from 2.75mm up to 5mm. So we've got 2.75, 3mm, 3.25 is here. I'm using those at the moment. 3.5, 3.75, 4mm, 4.5 and 5. So you can see at the moment I'm using three of the tips. I've got the 3.25 and the 3.75 on one project, and then I'm using 4.5 for a different project. So I've given them a good sort of workout. So let's have a look at the needle tips themselves. Let's look at a thicker one because that's a bit clearer to see. These are the 5mm, so this is the biggest in this set. And generally I've actually, I am thinking of ordering a couple of sizes bigger than this and some larger cables as well, just for another design project I've got in mind. But this small set, the little sort of screw tip here fits into the small cable. If you ordered the large set, which goes from 5.5mm up to 10mm, I believe, it comes with a different, it's thicker, I believe, this sort of screw head. So you get a different cable. You can get connectors, I believe, so that you can actually use your small cables with the larger ones. They're bamboo. They're bamboo, but they are, the difference I find with this bamboo as opposed to, for example, a Chow bamboo set, is that this particular bamboo has been injected with resin. So it makes them harder and I think more resilient. I think bamboo generally is very soft. It's a very soft material and it can mark really easily. I do have some bamboo needles that Dan used and they're ridged all the way across because he knits tight, as you all know, and the yarn has bitten into the needles. So they're difficult to use after that point, I think, because you can always feel those ridges. Now these I've been using, like I say, for 2-3 months, and I haven't had any issues at all with that. They do feel like a harder material than other bamboos that I've tried, and I really liked that aspect of it. It's a lovely tapered tip, nice and sharp. I mean, that's the 5mm, which you can see is lovely and sharp for that size of a needle. And then down to the 2.75, which again, I think is beautifully pointy and sharp and would work for any lace project. I think they would be fantastic for lace. I haven't used them for lace. Oh, I say that actually, I have done eyelets with them and they were absolutely fine. So I've done like decreases, you know, a yarn over and then a decrease. Worked absolutely, no problem at all. I've done cables with them. Perfect, no issues there. They're lovely and smooth. I have had previously, not this set, but I have had wooden needles that when I started using them, I found there was a little split on the tip, and I've had that 2 or 3 times. I've had that with Knit Pro. I've had it with a tulip set that I tried. Not Chowgu, I don't think. But it's definitely happened a couple of times, and you don't notice it. You know, even if you do this, you might not notice it. But when you are knitting and your yarn's moving over it, you'll feel it catch on the fibres. I haven't had any of those issues with this set. Certainly the needles tips I've used so far, I've had no issues at all. They're beautifully smooth. They're grippy, but not super grippy. I think maybe because of that injection of resin, they have a slightly smoother feel, I think, than other bamboo needles or other wooden needles. So yeah, lovely and smooth. So that's your needle tips, all lovely and covered over and protected. There's then a little pocket here, and this actually had in it the little rubber grips. I'll show you those in a second, but you've got a handy pocket if you wanted to put in stitch markers, a little pair of scissors, anything like that. And then you turn it over and you've got another pocket at the back which has your cables and your little grips. So Hiya use these rubber grips. These are brilliant. I've got 2 or 3 sets of these, and I use them with all of my interchangeable needles for tightening. Now you do get a little key, as you can see, to use in the sort of traditional way of tightening your interchangeables. I never use this, I always just use the rubber grips. So you screw your tip in, and then you place one grip on the metal portion of your needle tip, the other grip on the metal portion of your cable, and you just give it a really good twist. I do it 2 or 3 times, and then I've never had one come off. Touch wood, there's wood. I've never had one come loose. You know, if you try to unscrew that now with your hands, you can't. I certainly can't do it. The other brilliant feature with these needles is that they spin in the cable. If you can see here, I'm turning the needle. You can see with a little hole that's moving around. They spin in the cable, and I think that also is a big factor in why they don't unscrew, because they've got that ability to spin, and therefore they don't want to unscrew here because they don't have to, because they can spin. The join here is excellent. I mean, I can't actually, you can obviously feel that join, but when I've been knitting, I haven't felt any snagging or anything like that. It's very smooth, and even here is also very smooth. I've not had any sort of fibre pulling on it or anything like that. So, I mean, that's brilliant. So to undo them, I always have to use the rubber grips. You just give it a little twist and then you can do the rest with your hands. So your cables are 2 20, in my case it makes a 26-inch length. If you've got the 4-inch tips, it's going to make a 24-inch. So they're slightly, with the 5-inch tips, they're actually slightly longer than the standard cable length. So you've got 2 of those in this set. You then get one of the large ones, so 42-inch this would make. And then this one is the 32, or in this case 34-inch it would make. Cable. So that's all of your cables, all of your needle tips, your rubber grips, so that's everything that you get in your set. So I've been using 2 needle tips for Dan's vest, and I'm using 3.25 and 3.75 for this. And this is the 32-inch cable, I believe. Yeah, 32-inch, or 34 it makes. And as I've said before, I've had absolutely no issues at all with these needles. I love them. You might have gathered that already. I've honestly not found any negatives at all with these needles. Like I said, they're lovely and smooth. They're lovely. I mean, they're super pointy, I think, for a wooden needle. They're very pointy. I hope you can see just how pointy they are. And what I really like about a needle in general, and not just these, is I like the needle tip to be very long and tapered. You can get some needle tips where it would go further up and then you'd all of a sudden it'd be straight down to the tip, so it's a very sharp sort of taper, whereas this is very gradual and it's smooth. You don't get a kind of ridge where it starts to taper, so that's lovely. And I use 3.25 for the rib and then 3.75 I'm using for the body. I'm also using the 4.5mm in a different project, and that's a really big design project. It's now quite hefty on the needles. It's about 7 skeins of DK weight yarn it will be in the end. So there's been a lot of weight on the needles of the other project, and that's not been an issue at all. I haven't found there's any problems with unscrewing or anything like that. It's been fantastic, and it's just a joy, really a joy to knit on, and so is this. And for everything I say about garment knitting, the thought of being able to knit with these needles is really drawing me back to it, because I'm just enjoying them so much. I've used all sorts of wooden needles. Knit Pro, obviously, the Harmonies, Symphonies, I've used an awful lot. And these are my favourite by far. One of the other things I should have said, this is one of the other things that I love huge amounts, is the fact that it's not a dark coloured needle. The other wooden needles, like the Symphonies, are very dark in colour, and I think if you're working with a darker coloured yarn at night time, or even if your eyesight's not brilliant, I think that can be a bit of a bother. And I really like having a light coloured needle, because if you've got a white wool like this, it's not a problem. You can see your stitches lovely. If you had a dark coloured yarn, you could still see your stitches really nicely. So that's a huge thing for me. I mean, the difference between, I think, a bamboo and the Knit Pro needles. Knit Pro is birch, and I think birch wood is much harder than bamboo. Bamboo's very soft, and I think that's the reason why when Dan used them, it bit into the wood. Birch, I believe, is a bit harder of a wood. So if you want a bamboo set, then, you know, I would plump for these ahead of the Chowgoo, because I do think they're a bit more hard wearing, a bit more resilient, and less likely to, you know, to have your yarn bite into them. I'm obviously not a super tight knitter, so I can't really comment for that aspect of it. I'm a kind of average tension knitter. I'm not tight, I'm not loose. You can see my stitches they tend to just slide fairly normally. Generally, I don't have much difficulty getting gauge. I'm kind of a middle of the road tension-wise knitter. They are very light, actually. I mean, it weighs nothing. Wood needles in particular are very good if you have ergonomic problems with your hands. I find that if I knit with metal needles for a long time, I get really bad cramps and pains, but with wooden needles I don't tend to have that issue. And I think it's a combination of not having to hold the needle as tight because it's grippy. Your stitches are going nowhere on that needle, you know, they are very grippy. So you don't have to, you know, with some metal needles that are very slippy, I find I'm like this, you know, I've got to hold on for dear life for fear that my stitches are going to go flying off the end of the needle. So I think if you are sensitive in your hands in any way, or have arthritis, or any of those kinds of issues, then I think bamboo wooden needles are going to be a much better option for you. And certainly if you haven't tried them, then I would say definitely try them. Just buy one pair. You can actually buy these as a fixed circular. The bamboo, you can get fixed circulars. So if you've got a shawl to knit, you know, you've got something in mind, just buy one fixed circular to give them a go, because it's quite a big investment, and I did do a lot of research and a lot of thinking before I purchased this set. And I did actually buy one. I did do what I've just said. I did buy one fixed circular and use that before I decided to buy them. So that's a brilliant thing you can do. That'd cost you maybe £5, something like that, £5 or £6. And then you can try them, knit a whole project on them, and decide if you want to actually go ahead and purchase the set. So I know that there are a couple of people out there that I think went and bought this set after I spoke about it on the podcast a few weeks ago. So I really hope you're enjoying them, and do let me know, you know, if you were one of those people. If you're enjoying them, I'd love to know if you like them as much as I do. So there we go, that's the Hiya Bamboo Interchangeable set.